Okay, so we're going to go to case 3 now. I had unfortunately to break this into 2 videos. The limitations for the free screencast kind of kicked me. So we're going to go to case 3. This is our 20-year-old female. She presents a dermatologist with complaints of multiple large, small to large, 2 millimeter to 3 centimeter soft, asymptomatic, yellow-colored nodule lesions all over her body. These are xanthomas. We'll talk about these in a little bit. She's simply referred to a biochemical investigation, and she has an altered lipid profile. Again, we'll present that here in a minute. So detailed history reveals that she's had these since age 2. They gradually increased. Age 3, she was sent to a doctor who did a test but was unable to find any reason for them at the time. She didn't seem to have any worsening of the condition, so she was just allowed to continue. However, when the dermatologist and the biochemical investigation would take a look at her family history, we could see that her mother's side had significant, what we can assume is non-pathological MIs, meaning MIs not due to another cause, sort of no smoking, no diabetes, things like that. At a very young age, all 3 of her mother's elder brothers, and all 3 of his sons died early. So from this, we look at her lipid profile, and we can see a extremely high cholesterol right here. As you can see, more than double the healthy level of total cholesterol. Her triglycerides are within a nice normal limit, less than 150. It's a good range. Her LDL is again way over what you would want. And remember, LDL is our bad cholesterol. LDL being our good cholesterol. And good cholesterol. So, and her good cholesterol is well within a good range, but not able enough to look at our ratio here being extremely high. So if we look at the LDL, you want to look at about a 2 or less being a good range for our LDL-HDL ratio. She's significantly above it. As you can see, her VLDL is a little elevated as well. So these are the findings for what's called familial hypercholesteremia, or FH. So we can look at her xanthomas, and she definitely has that. Her total cholesterol is well into that range. We don't have DNA-based evidence presented to us, but assuming a DNA assay would show at least one of the defective genes. And she does have, obviously, a familial history. The primary, first-degree relative, less than 60, and secondary, less than 50. Cousins would be with at less than 50, and those were all well within that range. And again, we don't have a family history, but we can maybe look back at the brothers and possibly the mother and see. So we have a diagnosis with a probable diagnosis of familial hypercholesteremia, or FH. Again, we see that she has definitely the amount of correct points, which brings us to what we see for the normal mutations, as much as a normal mutation can be in a rare inherited gene mutation disease. LDLR is going to be our standard for the, which encodes for the low density lipoprotein receptors. These will allow for bringing LDL back into the liver, and when we look at this, we also have a mutation in LDLR-RAP, which is a protein that assists with LDL, bringing it back into the cell of the liver, the hepatocytes, and PCSK9, which actually codes for the amount of LDL receptors expressed. Any of these cause the LDL to be allowed to remain in circulation, and thus we see the xanthomas and ultimately the MIs and things like that down the road. For this last one, we have an ApoB, which encodes for ApoB48 and ApoB100. The ApoB48, if you remember earlier, we talked about ApoB48 being part of the chylomicron, being excreted from the liver, the small intestines cells into the lymph, and the ApoB100, which is going to be our cytoskeleton for our VLDL1 molecules. A deficiency in the apoprotein B100 is what we see this. So with our rare condition, we can take a look here with our pathways, but ultimately what we see is the LDL is left in circulation. With the LDL being left in circulation, we end up with a buildup. This buildup of cholesterol being unable to move in the bloodstream causes those xanthomas on our skin, which are essentially sacs filled with fat. And we could expect down the road MI and things like that to be very high on her list versus the normal population. So diet and exercise routines would be certainly 100% required for this young girl to make sure that her life stays as normal as possible. With this particular FH disorder, any number of spectrum of she could be having an MI tomorrow versus down lower where she's just going to have to deal with some of these xanthomas building up when she eats too much fat. So as we can see, our last question here being, why are the triglycerides at a normal level? Well, this chart here shows that as we move down the list, our triglycerides decrease in the amount that are in the LDL from the chylomicrons. So there are some triglycerides in LDL generally, but they are fairly minuscule. They've all been dumped off by the time they're considered LDL. The only thing you don't see on this list is the HDL, but those are the ultimate fate of a lot of the triglycerides coming in here. Not the most of it's coming into the cells, but LDL contains very little triglyceride. So with an inability to degrade and or pull in LDL, we're not going to see too much triglyceride being built up, just cholesterol. Here's our citations, and I'll have this attached to my slideshow PDF as well as the previous script to this particular class. And thank you very much for your time.